the ability to successfully resolve joint and muscle pain that is coming from compensatory movement is the ability to create new memories, new associations in your brain. And that's what I'm going to get to in this video. For a long time, we were always thinking, well, if a muscle hurts, then that muscle must be the issue. So let's strengthen the muscles near it, or massage it, stretch it, whatever it's going to be. So I always think that of trying to treat something on a local level. And I don't think that's overly effective. And I've been there, and none of that worked for me in all my life. On another level, a more global level, you see that muscle pain or that joint pain as a reflection of a greater issue going on in the entire system, in the entire body, not just a local issue. Just because you have knee pain doesn't mean you have a knee issue. More likely, that knee is the victim of instability going on in the pelvis, or poor sensory recognition of the ground, which are really the same thing, because if you had good sensory recognition of the ground, you wouldn't have an unstable pelvis. And this is what I'm going to get to. And I know some of this will be very abstract. However, I think it's an important distinction to understand. So a simple model for what I'm talking about is this. Input, filter, output. If you think about voice production, the input is air. Okay, you have air in you, and it's going through a filter, the filter, which is your voice box. So air gets pushed through the voice box, the vocal cords. The vocal cords vibrate. It vibrates the air molecules coming out out of your mouth. And that is what we call sound, vibrating air molecules. Although it's not really sound until your eardrums vibrate at a certain frequency, which is then converted to electrical impulses inside your brain, and then your brain decides what you're hearing. Pretty freaking amazing if you ask me. But again, all you are hearing is an interpretation, your brain's interpretation of vibrating air molecules. Input is the air, filter is the vocal cords, and the output is vibrating air molecules that your ear and thus brain then interprets as sound. Okay, so that's the input, filter, output model. Now let's get rid of those. Now let's think about movement. Walking and breathing, that's what PRI is all about. The ability to walk and breathe without compensation. Walking and breathing don't have to be learned. They are what they call fixed action patterns. In the book Eye of the Vortex by Rodolfo Linares, something like that. I'll put it in the video. This is what he talks about, fixed action patterns. All animals, humans, we all have fixed action patterns that have been developed over millions and millions of years of evolution. We do not have to think about how to breathe. We only think about breathing when we can't breathe very well. Otherwise, it's automatic. We only think about our body when it's not really working very well. You don't really think about your eyes too much until you can't see. You don't think about your ears too much until your ears start to ring when you're 13 years old. And then you become acutely aware of your body. But walking and breathing are fixed action patterns. Obviously, you can't walk when you're born, but as you develop as a child, no one really teaches you to walk. You just start to do it. It's a fixed action pattern. So you have this fixed action pattern going on inside you, no thought necessary. That is completely perfect. It does not need any input. We do use input to fine-tune things, but it doesn't need the input to get upright. It just starts to work. But the input is then used to fine-tune our movements. So your brain is sensing different, your brain is developing a visual system that is then able to perceive the external environment. You are then, once you're upright, you're then sensing the ground and pressure from the ground. And those are the two big sensory inputs. And that's just sensory contact. You don't know what it is at that point in time. The only reason you know what it is because it's processed through the filter in the brain, okay? And that's an important philosophical aspect to understand is the external world, that which is outside of your brain, is completely unknown to you. You only know it because that's what your brain tells you it is. However, you're not always correct. So that might seem abstract, but that's how people can create diagrams or pictures that completely fool your visual system. And even when you know that what you're looking at isn't really what you're looking at, you can't stop it from happening. They can do it with how they take advantage of your depth perception, and they can create pictures where the pictures appear darker than they really are or lighter than they really are. And then once you eliminate part of the picture, you realize that's not what you really think you're seeing. But you can't stop it. The moment you take your hand away and you see the full picture again, you can't stop from seeing the wrong thing. So your brain is guessing at what you are seeing. It's not the real thing. Everything that you see is reflecting light. That light goes through your eye, all those sense parts of the eye, through the optic nerve, converted again to an electrical impulse. An electrical impulse goes back to the occipital lobe, visual lobe, and it's processed. So it's processed in the filter. So everything all input comes through this filter, and then it becomes known to us. But the problem is, well, it's not a problem, it's just how it is. The filter is based on memory. You have a memory, you have a fixed action pattern. That is the memory of how things are supposed to be, and that's how your brain expects it to be. So it predicts that in 5 seconds from now, if I'm walking, it's going to be the same way that I was walking the rest of my life, or the same way I was walking 5 minutes ago. It expects that to happen. That way you don't have to think about things in real time. You can walk down Fifth Avenue in Manhattan talking to your friend and not have to think about walking whatsoever. It saves us from having to think about what we're doing right now so we can do other things. So that's a good thing. But when you end up in a strong pattern like this left AIC, right BC pattern, which is completely normal, but when that normal inherent asymmetry gets out of whack or just gets a little too extreme, this fixed action pattern gets altered. And we have a new way of moving, and that's improper. It breaks us down. It still works, but the problem is we're compensating. We have to walk through compensation. And once you do that, you've lost proper sensory input from the ground. It's changed. If you're constantly on your right leg, your sensory input of the ground underneath the right side of your body is greater than the input or your sensory awareness of the ground underneath the left foot. So that's why I keep talking about the left heel and the right arch. If you're on your right leg and your pelvis comes forward on the left and back on the right, you're going to have a lot of awareness of your right heel and the arch of your left foot because you're shifted over to the right. In order to even things out, you have to sense the ground. You have to get new memories. You have to create new memories starting from the ground, the ground that you lost. So you need the ground back underneath your left heel and the arch of your right foot. That is going to get the fixed action pattern back. The fixed action pattern that you lost, which is called being on your left leg, you probably never actually lost it. You're just not using it because your brain thought that you should be on your right side the entire time. That became the new normal. We have to get the old normal back, which was a left side and a right side. But right now, we become all right-sided. So the only way you can do that, though, is by creating new memories. And new memories require external sense, your sense of the outside. That is light, so your visual system. Most people don't really have to worry about that too much. But then pressure. When your foot hits the ground, your brain only knows to activate the left hamstring by feeling the ground pushing up on your left heel. You don't do it, you have to use the ground effectively. Otherwise, you can't create a new memory. If you're just doing a 90-90 and just trying to feel your left hamstring without taking into account what you're sensing, what you're feeling from the ground and the position of your own body, you're not making any new associations. You're not making any new memories. If you do it as a left hamstring exercise, and that's what you think of it as, and that's what you're doing, and that's what you're feeling, nothing else but the left hamstring, and you're not paying attention and making new associations, that 90-90 is kind of meaningless to you. It's meaningless to your brain because it wasn't associated with anything from the outside. So the other thing would be internal sense. When I'm coaching a 90-90, I am never telling anyone to feel their left hamstring. I have them sensing other areas of their body, and they have to report to me what they're feeling on the inside. I tell them to sense position of their body, which direction their body is going, where the right side is going, where the left side is going. They're sensing pressure from, they are feeling internal sense of their muscles, but that just tells me that they're feeling the right things. That tells me, I don't care. It's great that they're feeling the left hamstring, but it means that I instructed them correctly to feel the proper things that then gave them the left hamstring. I wasn't trying to get them to feel the left hamstring. I was trying to turn off the other pattern that permitted them to feel the left hamstring. So it's a different way of doing it, and it's way more effective, I can assure you of that. And then awareness. You have to be aware of the position of your body. All of these create new memories that your brain is filtering, that your brain is processing all of this and is saying, oh, this is walking and breathing. Now I understand. I'm on my left leg. Left hamstring should be on, left adductor, internal rotation. I feel the ground. I feel my rib cage expanding. I'm breathing. I'm safe. I'm secure. No reason to panic. I can relax. If you only try to change the output of the muscle by trying to address the muscle itself, maybe it's massaging it, strengthening it, lengthening it, whatever you're trying to do, you're not really changing. You're not attacking this area. You might be getting a little bit of this area, the brain and the output. You might be getting a little bit of that, but without this part, which fine-tunes all of this movement, you're not going to change a whole lot in the long term. That's the difference between what we're doing with postural restoration. This is how I see it. That's the big difference, is I'm putting way more of a emphasis on this. The input and the filter itself, sensory processing to produce the proper output. If I only attack the output, if I just try to feel a left hamstring, leaving out all of this, it's not going to have the same effect, because that's not walking and breathing. That's not how humans exist. We can only produce the proper muscular output by incorporating the proper sensory input and processing it along with the auditory system, the visual system, the inner ear, the vestibular system, balance. Remember, walking and breathing. If you're standing up, your preoccupation is not falling down. Gravity. Gravity is trying to push you down every moment of the day if you're on your feet, and your brain has to deal with that. So your brain has to deal with ground and gravity. Gravity is a constant, ground's a constant. If we have proper input from the ground and our visual system, that was me for 40 years, that couldn't do that, then you'll have the proper output. But once you lose the proper input and the fixed action pattern that you should have for a left side and a right side becomes only the right side fixed action pattern, to the point that you forget about the left side, which is really what happens, you're not going to get a whole lot of change when it comes down to movement and stabilization.